Good morning and welcome to Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor, Ontario. My name is Tammy Maxine, and today I'm going to introduce our speaker, Reverend Kathy Harwood Long. Kathy serves as a senior minister at Friends of Unity in Plymouth, Michigan, and additionally with Unity Worldwide Ministries EarthCare team. She is a long-time friend of Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor. I'm going to read a short prayer from our book called Teach Us to Pray, and this book was written by Charles and Cora Fillmore. And today's message is called Light of Life. By thy light and life I am strengthened and healed. Every good gift and every perfect gift cometh from above, from the Father of light, and I am in all ways prospered. So I'd like to introduce our first song today. We want to also give thanks for allowing us to use their music. It's a song called Turning Tides by Garret and JD Martin. I'd like to also add that I really liked the harmonies. It was really lovely, and it was a reminder to see that change brings good things. I also took note of the quote, "We are rising in this turning tide."
There is a promise, I feel it coming, in the rising of a turning tide, where every burden shall be lifted on the surge of faith inside, and every spirit will feel the blessing, every soul will be satisfied. We are rising higher and higher in this turning tide. We are rising, rising in this turning tide. We are rising, rising in this turning tide. I hear the music in the madness, I see the vision of a brighter day. I draw compassion from our sadness and fuel the fire for a better way. I put my money where my mouth is, I get on board the freedom ride. We are rising higher and higher in this turning tide. We are rising, rising in this turning tide. We are rising, rising in this turning tide. And so the promise becomes the present, and the future is opening wide. We are guided, we are gifted, we are lifted up inside, and nobody can do it for us. We sing our own hallelujah chorus. We are rising higher and higher in this turning tide. We are rising higher and higher. 2, 3, 4. In this turning tide, in this turning tide.
Hello, everyone. I'm so delighted to be with all of you. It's been several months, almost a year, and I was thinking in my own way, how do I really engage with all of you when I'm not there in person? Of course, that's the question of the time, isn't it, as we go through the pandemic? And I began to think of the people that I have met and that I know, having come over to Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor for many years now, since I moved to Michigan. And I began to think of Arlene and her sisters. I began to think of Mike and the music, or Shar. I thought of a wonderful woman that you all know so well, Lorraine, who used to greet me at the door when she was on the prayer team. And she would say to me, "I've been in prayer with you all week." Wow. And I would look at her and I would think about the fact that somebody had thought of me, had carried me into their prayer time, their prayer consciousness all through the week. And invariably, that consciousness that I would encounter as I would touch into Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor was one that was transformative and that went beyond a physical space, that I had been held in a prayer consciousness all through the week. And Lorraine and I would share some of the things that had transpired. For years, I kept little letters. She has this ability to do calligraphy, and I kept her letters in my file. So I'm reaching to you through time and space and beyond time and space, that we can connect and we can be together and we can do a deep dive into this spiritual dimension of life that is so much a part of who we are. I was asked if I would share a quote, a scripture, and because I'm exploring with you today the question, how then shall we live? Which is really the title from a book by Wayne Muller. And if you've never encountered this book or this man and the work that he does, it's one more to add to a very well worthwhile investment and time of study, especially right now. And in his book, which is titled, How Then Shall We Live?, he poses essential questions. And the first question, who am I? And I think that's right where we ought to start. Because really, as David travels and is with his father in Texas, as I think about the fact that I created a trip 3 times to travel to see my mother in the state of Washington, had to cancel those trips 3 times. The first time because we were too newly in the shock of the pandemic. The second time because there were fires so great out in the northwest part of the United States that I realized in looking at webcams, because again, I could be in more than one place almost, this virtual reality, that I could see that arriving in an airplane at night, the visibility with all the smoke would be so great that there was no way I was going to drive through that for 2 hours at night. And the third trip, my mom calls me during the day saying she just got back from a doctor's appointment. I'm 30 minutes away from my airport here in Detroit. And she said they had 10 feet of visibility. So you see, we're all navigating. We're all doing our best to just deal with life on life's terms, as we say in the 12-step program. How do you show up and do life on life's terms? And I find that this essential question, who am I, is a great place to start. So Wayne Muller, thank you. Thank you for your wisdom that comes through to us at this time. And in the book, he refers to a Navajo chant. The Navajo people were a part of a great overarching tribe, and that included, and they were in essence, the Iroquois. And so for we who honor, and I know that the country of Canada has really made an effort to honor First Nation people. And I appreciate so many things about Canada, and I thank you for the gift that you give all of us at this time, as we are in fact creating out of all of what seems like chaos, a new reality from the now. So I share with all of us a way of starting. How then shall we live? Start in the now, start in the present. It's what we've got. Be here now, Ram Dass said. So let me just share this as a way of just getting us to engage right where we're at. If you're sitting on your couch, or I'm right here in the room this is my prayer corner. By the way, it's where I get the best reception. So I figured this is what's going on. This is what's working. I can have a cup of tea with you. I can look out my window. I can see my greenhouse. You can see the sun coming in the morning. And I'm imagining through the power of imagination, how we can engage together right now is to be present on the land that upholds us. So let's participate in this prayer as a way of rooting ourselves in the present moment. And I rewrote what I found in the book slightly differently to think about the land where we're at. This is the Great Lakes bioregion. This is what we call home. It is defined by all the water, and yet we live on the land. So this morning, let us presence the rolling hills and say to ourselves, I become part of it. It is a part of me. Let us presence the herbs and the growing plants and say to ourselves, I become a part of these, and they are a part of me. Let us presence the standing ones, the great trees, the oaks and the maples, and even some ash that continue on, the cottonwood and the willow. I become a part of these, and they are a part of me. And let us presence the waters, the sweet seas, as the earlier explorers called them, the fresh waters of the many Great Lakes and the small lakes and rivers that are our home. I become a part of these, of this, and it is a part of me. And so, friends, how then shall we live? We become daily on an ongoing basis, rooted and present in the now moment. And I would say that this essential question, who am I, helps us ask maybe an underlying question. Yeah, am I alive? Am I even alive today? Because who am I for the human species is often dominated by the human body, which is really, from a scientific perspective, animal. We are mammals. And we live much of our life very dominated by that, reacting, coming from our fight and flight part of the brain. So who am I today is a really great question. And I would pose a secondary question to that. Am I really alive? Am I alive to that which is in me, as me, through me, that is greater than me? And I'm remembering that there is a biblical reference that would really have been significant in the time of Jesus, the great teacher, because he is called upon to go to his very dear friend Lazarus, who is supposedly dead. And out of great love, he leaves where he's at and he goes and he travels this distance to this loved one that is supposedly dead. And maybe what's significant about the story is when we ask ourselves, am I alive? Am I really alive today? We might actually acknowledge that there are parts of self that maybe are not feeling very alive. And I've heard a lot of people share about how they have felt unmotivated, difficult to get out of bed, difficult to keep going right now, maybe not feeling so very alive. And yet this great teaching comes to you and me. And I know I'm doing this recording right here with Andy and Mariette. Mariette, we've been together in many ways. We've traveled together, been together just to do the things that are about becoming more alive, more awakened, more energized, more present. And so what is it that Jesus says when he encounters Lazarus, who is all wrapped and in the process that was true to the culture of that time? He says, come out, come out. There's another story that is found actually in the Gospel of Mark. It's actually found in Mark, in Luke, and Matthew. It's the story of a little girl. The synagogue leader Jairus, whose daughter is thought to be dead. And Jesus goes to her. And what does he say to this little one as he holds her hand? He says, "Get up." And she is but asleep. I have often been fascinated by these stories, and I know that they were probably part of the great tension of the time that led to the crucifixion of Jesus. Because how radical, how radical is that? Like, how radical is that? And yet how radical is it to be with a loved one that maybe has been dying to addiction, and we see them come back to life because they've encountered a spiritual program, that they begin to get up and they begin to turn to a power greater themselves to have a life again. Whew! How powerful is it to see somebody who has been devastated by something that's been out of their control, to have a loved one passed on, to have a child passed on. Parents, as parents, we just, oh man, I'm the mama bear, like I'm constantly tripped up thinking I have some control or some power over the circumstances of my child. And yet my very dear friends who have had children pass on, and wow, to make a comeback, to come back to life after something like that. So we know that this is a reality for us, but we know it, I feel, those of us that are spiritual aspirants, we know it when we begin to realize over and over again, there's a power greater than me that's at work. And I choose to call that God. Now, I use lots of names to point at what I'm calling God, and you probably do too. And I encourage us to, because some of our early religious training was presented to us at a young age when things were very black and white and literal for us. And we just boxed God in a box, like we didn't have to have a religion to do it. We were going to do it because of the early age and how we were interpreting what our adults were saying to us. So we find words and we point at that which is greater, power greater than myself, the beloved, great teacher, living one, pure prospering presence. I've brought many names to point to that which I call God. And why does it help us to do that? Because it's pointing at that which is greater. And then we begin to wonder about that. So when Jesus as a teacher is getting himself into big trouble with people that are the leaders of his time, not only the Jewish leaders, but obviously the Roman leaders, and he says, "You are gods?" Wow. How do we take that on? How do we live that? We in Unity and New Thought spirituality have been working at that for over 100 years, really asking ourselves how we can get up every day and how we can do that, how we can root in that. So I want us to think about the trees that are outside right now, because wherever you're beaming in from, and I know that people will be watching this from around the country and around the world, but here in our part of the North American continent, it is the autumn season, and the leaves are falling and cascading down on these beautiful windy days. And when I think about what it's like to walk into the center where Unity Spiritual Center meets, and you will do that again, you will walk through those doors, and there will be those beautiful trees on the walkway into the building. And they're right now, the leaves are on the ground. I can just see them. They're so beautiful. They're on my street. But friends, let's think about that, because it will appear to us in the winter months that the tree is dead. It's not growing anything. But we know intellectually, because we've been taught, that that tree is very alive. It's actually doing a great work even in the winter months. The energy of that tree is not done just because the leaves have fallen. And we want to remember that there is a power greater than ourselves that is at work in us, that is living us even when we don't feel like we've got the power to get out of bed. or the power to exercise a discipline to eat healthily because we've been taught we got to do all these different things so that we can have a healthy body and we can live for years and years and years. Friends, let's go deeper than that. Let's go deeper than thinking that we have power and control and that we can make things happen the way that we want them to be. But we can attune ourselves to a power greater than ourselves. We can say to ourselves, come on out. We can affirm in that affirmative way, I am the creation of the universe. That which is the power of the universe is creating me, and I call it out. Sometimes it is that, or sometimes it's turning to a prayer partner that's going to know it for us, that's going to speak that for us, because we cannot do it for ourselves. That's the power of spiritual community. And I'm speaking to a spiritual community, and I'm saying to each other, all of us right now, we have got to do the more than. When we know that God is more and can lift us, and it's the power that is the power as us to get up and keep going even through the storms and the winds of our time, we've got to do the more. We've got to be accountable. We've got to pick up the 100-pound phone. We've got to do more than an email. We've got to send those cards. We've got to reach to each other. Even though it's going to be cold, we can still come out on a sunny day and greet each other and sit on each other's decks. We've got to do the more. God is the more, and we are living up to that more. Because every tree outside my window started as a seed, but that seed sits dormant until it gets all the right ingredients. We're the God seed. How then shall we live? By practicing the connection, the interbeing that we are. When I think about what it means to live, and I think about how the trees root, I think about what roots us in a day and how we can do the more. So because we're in my prayer room, I can show you a very kinetic way of doing this. And I'm talking about living close to the earth and having the earth and all that's been given us as instruction to be a part of our reality, our metaphor, our analogy, our living design. And I find that I relate better by connecting to the earth. And we can get out and hug those trees. I know a woman that's going through cancer right now, and she talked about when she felt most alone through this pandemic, she would go out and hug a tree. And she said, you know, you really can feel energy. So I want to talk about the ways that we root, because trees will come through this winter season. Let's face it, whatever it is we want to label it that we're going through as humanity, and we're in it. And I like to say that it is that which is us. We're in it. I am not in a pandemic. I and you, we are in God. We're experiencing a pandemic, but what are we truly in? We are in something that's so much more, something that's so much greater. So how do we root that in our everyday? I had somebody say in a Wednesday morning session to just take that deep dive every week. How are we living this? How are we living this? He said, like, yeah, you know, I do my prayer and meditation, but how do I keep it going through the day? Well, good news, start by rooting it physically. So I want you to see that behind me on these bookshelves, you probably can't see it very well, but there are pictures of different individuals, spiritual teachers that have been significant on my path. And then I can also then come into this room and I can light this candle. You know, and there's something significant about lighting a candle because it's evocative, it's fire. And Jim Rosenberg, the longtime Unity minister, would say, be the wick in God's candle. Do something kinetic that is more than just the head. Greet the spiritual teachers with words. Light a candle. Find ways to bow in the four directions. Find ways to bring the body into what we're doing. And then we root as we go through the day, whether it's having a meal, light another candle, but find the ways to root. Why? Because when the winds come along, we're ready. I heard a story recently of a man that had a heck of a time getting himself out of bed to go to work at 7 a.m. And of course, it's going to get dark pretty soon. We're all going to have a tough time thinking about getting to bed, especially if we're doing work in front of a computer. We're missing the camaraderie. You just like, okay, but he got out of bed. He went to work. By 3 p.m., he'd been fired. People had been laid off. No more job. Gets in his car, kind of devastated, driving down the road. His car breaks down. But this guy, you got to think about what helps us to go through these kinds of experiences right now. Somebody stops. So let's acknowledge that, because somebody stopped. Somebody took the time to connect with somebody that was just, having a car breakdown. Gets him into the car, gives him a ride. In the drive, they get to know each other a little bit. By the time that car ride is done and the man is able to get the whatever help for his car, the man that has picked him up from the side of the road has offered him a job. What steadies us when our cars break down? I had a friend recently who was told she was having a heart attack. They bring her to emergency. She's been in the hospital. Her husband's there, her daughter's there. She gets a chance to call me. I'm her prayer partner. 12 hours later, she calls me up and says, they're telling me I didn't have a heart attack. But what helps us go through experiences we just aren't planning and we don't feel like we have a lot of control over? I would say it's rooting. So we're going to go into prayer and meditation now. That's part of rooting. And meditation is really listening and watching. And I want us to think about those roots because they're really underground. We can do these physical practices of saying a prayer, lighting a candle, bowing, going outside, hugging a tree. How then shall we live? By rooting in a power greater than ourselves that's often so invisible to us. Roots that grow underground are invisible to our eyes. We rarely see them above ground. They have to be underground. They have to be in the mystery of that which is unseen. How then shall we live? By showing up with the mystery, by showing up with the unseen. And that's uncomfortable for us. I realize that. And so how we hold it, I would like to invite us to hold it in a way that is not trying to control it, not trying to have power over it, but showing up with curiosity and being in the experience with the mind of wondering, as children do, beholding the rain, the winds. I had a child once that encountered a big hole on the playground when I was teaching. And this child, it was filled with rainwater, decided the most amazing thing to do was to get in that hole. By the time I discovered him, he had mud from the top of his head all the way down. I just brought him to the front door and just said, just stay there as I peeled things off. So I'm not saying that we necessarily have to feel like we have to go into the mud, but we could go into our experience with wonder, curiosity, interest, and a very physical experience too. So wherever you're at, we're going to create sanctuary right now. And I know that can be tricky if your cat's walking by, mine might show up, phones are ringing, children running around. But we can do that because the sanctuary lives within us. And we're not trying to make things be quiet. We're not trying to make the outer stop. We're showing up deep within where the roots are fed, the root of the conscious awareness. So feel free to close your eyes, or if you're weary and you're tired, find a place to put your attention. I love to look at trees. I love to look out my window at a tree. If it's morning and it's dark, I light that candle. I look at the candle. And I'm going to keep looking at you right now. It's my way of feeling connected to you wherever you are. Even though I will not see you in person, I am holding you in the spiritual light. So let us pray, knowing that in this now moment, there is more than meets the eye. And we are doing that more of showing up with that which is greater. That which is called God, O beloved one, Father, Mother, God, dear friend, that calls us to rise up, to come out, to live, to be alive in ways that are greater than meets the eye. And may my words now be the words of your heart. As I say yes, yes, dear friend, I'm willing to rise. I am willing to be present with all that is, knowing there is more. For I exercise my faith in knowing that I am a spiritual being. I am a creation of the universe. I am able to show up right now in the silence, to listen, to watch with wonder, without any attachment of what I am going to hear or see in myself. Yet I am counting on this, dear friend, that this moreness is revealed in this now as I listen and as I watch. I breathe deeply into this presence. Opening my mind and my heart to love. The love that leads through the crowded thoughts as Jesus was led to his dear friend Lazarus. So I am led to that part of myself, that part of the greater life that may seem dead or unawakened. It is called out, called forth, rises now in the life force and the great power of life that leads me on. I live, for life, divine life, lives me. I hold this vision for all in my midst, for all those that are seeking, those that are imprisoned and in bondage, in fear, or in a jail or in hunger. For the water, the earth, the air, all living creatures, I hold this vision. We live, for life lives us. And so it is. Amen. Thank you again for our divine appointment. We go forward together. I look forward when we circle around one more time. All my love and blessings to all of you at Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor.
Thank you so much for that beautiful meditation and for your presence with us today, Kathy. I always enjoy your messages. And today's talk had me thinking and feeling about who am I today? How I deal with life on life's terms, and the importance of being rooted in the now and grounded in imagination. I also love how you visualized our center and reminisced about the people we know and love here at Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor. Thank goodness a tree doesn't believe the winter is the end. That thought had me thinking to be present, be here, be in the now, as we cannot know what is ahead. And with that being said, I really, really am excited to share this second song by Kimmel and JD Martin called Listen. I hope you appreciate the video. Have a great day. The sound of love is in the air.
The world runs fast, the spirit's slow, to where we think we need to go. When we move into passing gear, the song of love is hard to hear, till everything's so loud that we're alone with what we're missing. Listen, somewhere beneath this sea of noise, we hear the angel's whispered voice. The song is there, the words are clear, and all we need is still right here. Listen, the harmony of wings in flight, rising of the wind at night, the breaking of the ocean waves will call the heart that's half awake. The sound of every breath we take can free a soul from prison. Listen, listen. Somewhere beneath this sea of noise, we hear the angel's whispered voice. The song is there, the words are clear, and all we need is still right here. Listen, for all we're worth, the door to heaven's here on earth. The shout for joy, the softest prayer. The sound of love is in the air. Listen, oh listen. Somewhere beneath this sea of noise, we hear the angel's whispered voice. The song is there, the words are clear, and all we need is still right here. Listen, listen.
That was an excellent video. Thank you to Tom, Kimmel, and JD Martin for that song called Listen. I admired the quote, "The sound of love is in the air." Now I'd like to invite all of you to attend our Zoom discussion. And today is Conversations with Mariette. And Mariette Jones will be on our Zoom waiting for you right after today's service. And she will have a further discussion about Reverend Kathy's talk. If you'd like to get instructions on how to attend, please go to our website and follow the instructions, and we shall see you there. We want to thank all of you who continue to support Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor. Your time and generous donations of tithes and love offerings mean the world to us, especially during these uncertain times. We appreciate your continued support so that we can continue to provide our programs and services. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. At Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor, we graciously accept your time, effort, and tithes lovingly. Here are ways that you can financially support us. By e-transfer or PayPal, you can send it to unitycenterwindsor@gmail.com. Or on our website, you can click the blue donate button at the top, and that will lead you to Canada Helps, which is a safe, secure site to make a one-time or recurring donation using a credit or debit card. Or you can send a check or money order to our office. For further information, visit our website at www.unityofwindsor.org. Again, thank you and bless you for your loving and generous support. You are very important to us. And here at Unity Spiritual Center of Windsor, we are always exploring different ways to provide more online services, classes, and opportunities to meet virtually. For information about all of our upcoming classes and events, they can be found at our website, www.unityofwindsor.org. Or if you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, please contact us and we will add you to our email list. As we come near to the end of today's service, I want to thank you again for joining us today. Before we close with a short prayer of gratitude and our prayer for protection, I would like to share with you our vision, mission, and statement of being. Our vision are the things that we think about or we plan for our future or how we imagine it to be. Our vision is a world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of shared spiritual awakening. And our mission is how we go out into the world and share unity. Our mission is we inspire and empower spiritual growth to awaken us and transform the world. And our statement of being is, I like to say, is our personal responsibility. So this statement of being is this: I am a dynamic center of the Christ light, mighty to unfold my good and radiate that good to all. So now let's open our hearts and minds in gratitude as we close by speaking out loud or silently to ourselves our love offering prayer, followed by the prayer of protection. Our offering blessing is this: divine love in me and through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. Our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is, and I am divine. Once again, I'd like to thank Reverend Kathy Harwood Long for her talk, and also to our musicians today, Mike Karloff, Tom Kimmel, JD Martin, Jan Garrett. I wish all of you a wonderful, wonderful week. Take care.